Welcome to Brushstrokes of Being. In this episode, I'll explore questions I ask myself, questions others often ask me too. As artists, we have the tendency to start with technique, or people often begin asking about technique. But rarely is that the real question. What they truly want is the story behind the work. Who you are as an artist and as a human being. So today, two sides of myself will be in a conversation. The artist, who lives for unity, diversity, transformation, and the art historian and cultural philosopher who seeks meaning in those three. Years ago, in a course, in a meditation, my why came forward. Stay true to who you really are. But after certain life events, I had to ask again, who am I? And I've often been called a rebel. As a child, that was simply curiosity. I questioned everything under the sun, and I still do. Even at 2 years old, I wandered off on little adventures. My gran loved to tell those stories. But that same curiosity carried me into studies. First classical music, then art, and already a rebellious choice in my family anyway, because my father didn't approve. But I followed my heart. And later I turned to cultural philosophy and art history. Not only how art is made, but why it matters. And perhaps that is why I paint like the old masters, but with a bold twist. They had such knowledge of materials, and every brushstroke told and still tells a story. I study them constantly, not to copy, I do also, but to understand. To see how color and form were never mere decoration, but carriers of meaning. And for me too, expression must always serve the story. But what does that mean in today's world? We live in a culture of the illusion of speed. Quicker, louder, larger. Even in classical music, pieces are performed faster and faster and faster, and that's called virtuosity. In art, immersive projects invite you to step inside Van Gogh, rather than to stand quietly before a painting. Portraits drip with paint, faces dissolve into abstraction, because that sells. Yet in that noise, the practice of truly seeing is lost. The stillness of looking. For me, resisting that is part of my rebellion, if you say so, or want to. My work is slow and deliberate. Each portrait is a relationship. In painting, I slow down time. And through this slowing, diversity enters naturally. For me, diversity is not a trend. It is essential. And it means painting people from different cultures, yes, but also animals, nature, everything that speaks to the unity of life, because we're all one. Cultural philosophy helps here, because diversity is not just about what is represented, but how people encounter art. So much contemporary work is wrapped in difficult theory, and often it is mere entertainment than art itself. And viewers who don't get it often feel excluded. They walk away or they defer to experts. And because the experts say it's amazing, they also applaud. But I don't believe art is meant to exclude. I want to create works that tell a story, even if the viewer invents their own. pieces that people can live with, that can transform them. I've seen this happen. A friend once stayed with me, and over the weekend, simply being surrounded by my paintings shifted her energy. Imagine living with that every day. That is the quiet power of art. But then, my values of unity, diversity, transformation, they may sound gentle. Isn't rebellion harsher, more radical? Well, not for me. My rebellion has always been to follow my heart, even when others disapproved. It is not rebellion for its own sake, it is integrity. A friend once told me I was an activist. At first I resisted that word, but she may have been right. My activism shows up in who I paint and how I tell their stories. And there I must make a crucial distinction. Discrimination and racism are not the same. Discrimination is exclusion. Women erased from art history textbooks or excluded from practice. LGBTQ plus people criminalized simply by and for existing. Racism is different. It is rooted in a fabricated idea of different races, a falsehood invented to place white people at top of a hierarchy. In truth, there's only one race, the human race. What we have is a rich diversity of cultures. That conviction fuels projects like Black Queer Role Models, Painting for Unity, created with poet Aneka Chambers, or my book on domestic abuse. I don't march in the streets. My protest is quieter. I educate. I paint with love. And sometimes love itself is rebellion. And then there is color. And for me, color is story. And that goes back to music. Painting with sound, tones and shades. In the studio, I often paint with music playing. Then I enter a trance and time dissolves. My color choices arrive intuitively, as if downloaded. This isn't separate from theory. I know color theory, but it has become inner knowing, a deep knowingness. In Black Queer Role Models, some portraits carried the LGBTQ colors. One was done in Rembrandt's deep chiaroscuro, the subject looking straight at you, powerful, radiant with strength. Now, in my current series, Exceptional Female Musicians, I listen and watch extensively. With Janine Jansen, I already knew which colors would carry her playing. With Sol Gabata, I also know which palette will capture her essence. With Mahalia, I placed her in a 19th century pre-Raphaelic situation, but as empowering woman with her own beautiful voice, with beautiful colors. And that is the power of color, to hold story, never as decoration, always as truth. And so, my dear listeners, this was not an interview with answers. It was a conversation between the artist and the philosopher, an art historian, between rebellion and love, between stillness and color. And this is what it means to live as an artist, to ask questions again and again and again. And perhaps it is an invitation for you too, to ask your own.